A manga that I recently revisited and found to be extremely relevant to our current social climate is a bit of a hidden gem from an otherwise pretty well-known mangaka, Junji Ito. Ito's work is prolific in the sci-fi and horror genre in manga for over 30 years. He is most known for his short stories often depicting extremely detailed horrors beyond your imagination. Now, I definitely should not have been reading a manga this violent and insane at 14 years old, but it's not my fault that talking in sketchy forums online was cool when I was a kid. Hellstar Remina is a 6-chapter psychological thriller that has underlying commentary on society's propensity towards building up young celebrities just to turn it all around on them at the drop of a feather. Though the way it depicts this message is very unlike anything I had read before. Somehow this short comic, published back on August 30th, 2005, is even more relevant today than it was upon initial release. It also often gets left in the wake by Ito's more famous works such as Uzumaki and Tomie, and even has gotten a lot of flack for its over-the-top depictions of violence and absurd plotline, with an ending that leaves you with a ton of questions. Despite this, I personally think this manga hits a lot harder in the current day and should be given another chance, as it's one of my favorite works of his, and this is coming from someone who has read a large majority of the dude's work since I was in middle school. To my surprise, they've recently decided to finally publish this story in a physical format, releasing in the US on December 15th by Viz Media. I'm hoping this gets this brilliant piece of art into the eyes of many Western manga fans, and I already have it pre-ordered myself. Like many of Ito's works, this story takes heavy inspiration from the lore of the ever-present H.P. Lovecraft universe. It begins with a haunting panel of our main character Remina affixed a cross amongst an angry mob beckoning for her death. What's worse is in the background you get your first glimpse of the tenacious gaze from the planet known as Remina, a seemingly sentient planet with only one goal: to devour all in its path across its celestial voyage. As the information comes together on this planet, you continue to get breathtaking panel after panel showing its almost infinite details, and you even get to see what the ground level looks like. I love the way he gives you a taste of the madness to come right off the bat with these extremely provoking shots that instantly made me want to read this in one sitting. The lead up to these events are nothing that you would ever be able to come up with off the top of your head unless you were smoking crack, perhaps. It starts with a scientist, Professor Ogado, winning the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in discovering a new planet that completely defies the laws of physics and entered their galaxy through a wormhole. The interesting part is that he decides to name the planet after his teenage daughter Remina, due to the planet being discovered on her 16th birthday, coincidentally. This, coupled with her innate beauty, starts to have an effect on the people of Japan as they begin to worship her very much in the same way that people would a modern pop star or actress. Remina, being quite a shy girl, is having trouble adjusting to this newfound fame, but can't pass up on the opportunity to make money and give the people what they want. I mean, any normal person would, let's be real. She speaks to a good-looking man roughly her age named Yasumi Mitsumura, who works in the entertainment industry, and urges her to accept their offer of stardom. He uses his Chad-level speech abilities and convinces her to take the offer. Simultaneously, her father is getting foreboding reports from the other scientist that is researching the planet, and he tells him that the planet has stopped moving, and what's worse, he claims it looked him right in the eye, and he instinctively knew that it was coming for them. As the public starts to find out about the fact that Remina is heading straight for Earth, they begin to incessantly bombard the human Remina with questions that she could not possibly know the answer to, and even follow her to her birthday party and ruin it. Luckily, your boy Yasumi comes in clutch with the save, as is a theme that continues throughout the manga. What begins to form is basically a reverse harem for Remina. You have 3 main male characters vying for her attention, and they are basically the meme of the Chad, the simp, and the incel that you see tossed around on Twitter and Reddit. You are introduced to the incel Kunihiro Mineshi, who I would like to think would be a huge Ben Shapiro fan.
Wet-ass P-word.
He basically thinks that the world owes him because he comes from wealth, and he also has a general lack of respect for women. Just because I feel it is warranted, this character is a real piece of shit, and there's a really graphic scene, so just a potential trigger warning in Chapter 3. This character tries to sexually assault Remina. They don't show anything graphic, but it is something that I feel needs to be addressed, and you can just skip over it. It's only a few pages. There's a lot of other disturbing stuff in this manga, but nothing of that nature. Next up, you have the simp, Naoya Goda, who looks like the manga version of Artie Bucco from The Sopranos. and is basically the same character as well. He is the president of the Remina fan club and is basically willing to die for this girl that he has never even met nor has any emotional connection to. He is seemingly a background character for a lot of the story, but Ito does this intentionally for later plot developments. They really do remind me of these new internet archetypes of males that are so often tossed around these days, which is why, again, I find this series so relevant right now. The three of them constantly clash, trying to prove their worth, while Yasumi always comes out on top because he's the fucking Chad. All the while, the rest of the world is getting more and more hostile towards her as things are getting a lot more grim for the people of Earth. The citizens of Japan get a haunting look at what's to come when Remina approaches Saturn, and from their distance and with the technology they have, it appears that Remina collides with it and instantly erases it from existence along with all of the other planets it comes into contact with along the way. At this point, the citizens of Japan are in an anarchical state and are desperately trying to think of anything to do while the government tries very poorly to calm them all down. This leads to them demanding Remina and her father to be executed publicly so that the planet can see it and somehow think that this will either make it go away or destroy it. I don't really know exactly what they were expecting, honestly. It definitely shows how society can work together for evil rather than trying to defeat it or escape it like they would in your typical shonen series. The spread of misinformation is rampant and keeps festering until the events shown are of, you could say, biblical proportions, scenes that I will never forget in my entire life. I don't want to go too much further into what happens beyond this point, as I will leave that up to you to find out for yourselves, but I can tell you the ending is very different from most Junji Ito manga in that it actually ends on a hint of positivity, which contrasts to the vast majority of his catalog, which usually end in grim or horrific scenes. If you are a fan of sci-fi and or psychological horror, I would definitely recommend giving this a quick read. It's not very long, and you can find it online very easily if you do not feel like waiting for the hard copy to release. But I highly recommend picking it up to support the artist and Viz for making it possible. The way it depicts a society on the brink of destruction and fundamentally breaking down really reminds me of our current day issues with things like climate change, and even though it is highly dramatized, the reaction of the characters are eerily similar to the way that politicians try to place the blame on others for our issues, rather than just coming together to fix them. Furthermore, the three young men who gravitate around Remina greatly remind me of the current day zeitgeist of males on social media, three different stereotypes who you've probably encountered in real life. If nothing else that you find in this manga, the art alone is worth checking out, and it's some of my favorite that he's ever done to date, and you won't want to miss it.